game is moddable. It's a pretty complicated game under the hood. All those fancy new features come with an overhead. So a big warning, if you're going to wander off the reservation, you won't come back in one piece. Something will break or the game won't work. Strongly recommend restrict your modding activities to the areas highlighted by the modding videos, of which this is the first. We're dealing with the TO&E, Table of Organisation and Equipment, which is today's topic. The game has a particular philosophy with its design regarding this. You can read about that in the back of the manual under the designer notes, under the ROB section. So the official version won't be changing. However, that does not stop you from tweaking the TO&E to suit your personal preferences. Grab a pen and paper. You'll need to take a few notes. Of course you've backed up, and away we go. First thing we need to do is unlock the simple editor for the game. If you have a look in the main directory of your game, you can see there is a file called editorblock.txt. There it is. Open that up. You'll see two entries, true and true. Change the second one to false. Save the file. Exit out of that. And then we'll start up the game. And when we do that, the simple editor will be available. Here we are starting the game. You can see on the right hand side there's a few extra buttons. On the left hand side there's a simple editor button. So that all looks good. We'll fire up the game quickly and take a look at what we're about to change. Each unit is a division. Down the bottom you can see a range of different components. Now these are called troop types, or internally subformation types. That's what we'll be talking about changing today. You can mix them around, change the numbers. The most troop types that you can put in a single unit is 8 for practical reasons. If we have a look at the neighbour, 38th Tank Division, it's got an identical setup, as do all other regular tank divisions at the start of the game. However, these can be changed. So let's take a look at how we do that. Exit the game, back to the main menu on the right. Historical Unit Editor. That's the one we want. Open that up. Here we go. We want to load our Soviet Historical Unit Library, which contains all Soviet units in the game. There's another one for the Germans. So load Historical Library. Bang. And here are our two historical libraries, German and Soviet. We'd like the Soviet. Open that up. All good. Righto. Before we go any further, let's have a quick chat about how the system works. You design a template for a unit. That's under Unit Composition. Once you've done that, you then put together a historical model, which then can be applied to actual units, such as the 26th Tank Division and the Western Military District, which we were looking at before. So let's start with unit composition. Bang. Here we go, Tank Division. That's an early tank division, which is there's another one for late. These are the ones already in the game. Early Tank Division. Going across, we can see that its first troop is infantry, Soviet infantry, normal. Over here we've got some 45mm AT guns. Over to the right, which we can't quite see unless we scan. Okay, here we go. Scroll over. Troop Type 3, Soviet T-26. Troop Type 4, T-34s. Now those 4 troop types correspond with the pictures that we had a look at before. We'll quickly zip back and show you those. We've got the ability to change the composition of a standard early tank division. We could give it a few more anti-tank guns or a few less tanks. If we do that, all divisions that have that model applied to them will change. Let's jump ahead to historical units. Bang. If we look down the bottom, here we go, of the screen, 27th Tank Division. Now it's got the early tank division model, so as does the 36th Tank Division. So by changing those, changing the model, all of the historical units with that model will change. Back to unit composition, we're going to create a new alternative early tank division model. Now, down the bottom of the screen, just off actually, is the Add Unit button. You'll find that. Press that, bang. We've now got a new unit pop up. Remember, we're composing a unit which will then apply to a model. So we'll call this one we'll press the space bar. Generally, anything you want to do here, press the space bar. Tank Division Early, version 2. Next column, is it an HQ? Well, it's not, false. First thing we need, troop type. Press the space bar. We'll give it the same number of infantry. What you've got here is a pick list of the available choices for troop types. Adding to that list is feasible, but that is a whole new topic fraught with peril. So I would advise restricting yourself to the available menu. We'll grab some Soviet infantry. Okay, the people, in which case we could go back to the People's tab. And we see that Soviet regulars up here are people 0. It's the number on the left. We don't want conscripts, we don't want Siberians. So we're using regulars. Slot 0 on the left. Back to our unit composition. And we have 0 for that. Quantity. Same as before, we'll keep the numbers no different. 5. Space bar. 5. Enter. The numbers do not correspond to the actual numbers shown in the game. Now, there's a good reason for that. The combat engine is extremely detailed and very good. It's been tested over a good 10 years in a number of games and been fine-tuned over that period. So it's a bloody good combat engine, but it takes every individual subformation type and engages in battle. Now, if we had a typical Soviet division or German infantry division with 10,000 men, that would be 10,000 subformation types, each individually battling through a very detailed system. You'd be sitting there for a long time waiting for the battle to finish. So the actual numbers of units are quite a lot smaller that the game tracks. And there's a ratio that then converts it to the appropriate numbers that you see in-game. So we're using the actual in-game numbers. You need to know the ratio. The ratio for infantry is 200 to 1. Now I'll pop up a screen here. You can jot down the ratio numbers for the others. So with 5 infantry at 200 to 1, that gives us 1,000 infantry in-game, which is what we had before. Pretty good. Morale. Now we want to use exactly as what we had before. You can bump it up a little bit, but for all regulars, morale is set at about 50, which you can see by looking at the early tank division. higher the better. It drops down with conscripts to 40, as you can see, and goes up to 60 for the Siberians. So rule of thumb, regulars 50, below that 40 for conscripts, above that 60 for Siberians. Change those numbers and you'll make some dramatic shifts to the balance of the game. So I would keep them exactly the same as I would with experience, in which case for regulars it's 25. All right, so now we've got our early tank division. It's got 1,000 Soviet infantry in it. We'll duplicate the 45 millimetre 45 mil ATG guns. What have we got? Bang. People type 0 again. Quantity, we'll copy what we had, which is 4. 4. Same with morale, they're regulars, so that's 50. And experience, and again, 25. That's sorted out infantry and AT guns. We'll deal with the tanks. This is where we'll be making changes. We'll have to scroll the screen across to see that. Here we go. Right, so we're now going to do troop type number 3, which for the standard tank division, early tank division model, is 20 in-game units of T26s. Well, that equates to 100 actual game units of tanks. The ratio is 5 to 1. So for our modded version of an early tank division, let's say that, bugger it, let's give them double the number of light tanks. They won the raffle. Soviet T26. Once again, people 0, exactly the same, numbers, hang on. Numbers, we want, instead of 20 we had before, let's double it to 40. It equates, as we said, to 200 light tanks. Morale, as before, and experience, 50 for morale, 25 for experience. And finally, troop type number 4. T34s, there's 10. Hang on, wrong one. Before we had one single T34, which is 5 T34s. Early models, very unreliable. Came with crap transmissions, broke down most of the time. We'll give them a few more. T34, people 0, regulars. Quantity, we'll double that to 2, which gives them 10 tanks. Morale, identical, 50. And XP, 25. Now, we could keep going. We've done 4. We could keep going to troop type number 5. We could go out to number 8. Let's add them, or let's give them, we're feeling generous, we'll give them a KV1. Not historical, but hey, why not? There's our KV, people type 1, which equates to 5 tanks in game. Morale and XP. Righto, we've done all that. We've now got our unit composed for our early tank division, version 2. Next step is to create our historical model into the model page. Add a model. That's off the bottom of the screen, down the bottom. You'll find that easily. Bang. Right, let's call that tank division early upgraded. Certainly is. It's an independent unit, small graphics. That's the NATO symbol. press the space bar, go into Barb, scroll down until you find small graphics. We want armour. Armoured division, there it is. Click on that. And you can see we've now got the armoured division NATO symbol. Don't worry about anything else. We're going across, across till we get to people. Spacebar Soviet regulars. Now, over here, unit. This is the one we want. Press the spacebar. Here are all the models, or correction, here are all the units that we've composed. Tank Division Early version 2 is the one we've made. Terrific. We've now got ourselves an historical model. Looking good. We'll go to historical units. And we have, down the bottom, 26th Tank Division, Western Military District. At the moment, it's a Tank Division Early model. So press the space bar. We'll give it the, have to scroll down here, Tank Division Early Upgraded. KV-1s, lots of light tanks, extra T-34s. Bang, there it is. Do the same with its neighbour, the 38th Tank Division. Right, that's it. Pretty straightforward. Final steps, we need to save this library. Go to top left, save historical library. We'll save it as a different library name. We'll call it Soviet Historic Units Modern. Save that. Then we exit. We're back at the main screen. The next step is to load our scenario, and then, or we'll do that first. Load scenario. Here's our version. You'd have the backed up version, of course. Once that's loaded, we then need to go to the simple editor and load the actual modded library that we've created. So down the bottom, simple editor. Here we are in the dashboard of the simple editor. Up the bottom, libraries. Press that. All the libraries that are currently in the game. We want to load a library. We want a, move that up. Go down, we want a historical library. Here we go, Soviet Historical Units Modded. Open that up. Now it tells us we already have this library, which we do. We're going to overload or overwrite the existing one with the new version. So reload library. Now we need to do a little bit of jiggering around here. We want to substitute for the Soviet Union. And you'll see the import library button as soon as we've done that. Lights up. Press that. Now, here's a trick. Allow deleting of small graphics. No. No. So that's all good. Now we go back to the dashboard. Now we've loaded up our modded version of the library. And we save the scenario. We give it a new version. We'll call it modded. Save that. Wait for the message. There it is. So we should be done. Now, if we open up the game with that scenario, we should be able to see our couple of tank divisions, the 26th and the 38th, now have our setup for our modded version of an early tank division. here we are. Let's see what happens. Well, down the bottom, we've got the 22nd Tank Division. Now, that's a typical standard early tank division. You look down the bottom, you can see 100 T-26s and 5 T-34s, which is as it was before we started. But if we now go up to our 2 tank divisions that we've modded, where are they? Let's have a look. There's the 26. Have a look at that. It's now got 200 T-26s, 10 T-34s, and 5 big Wumpers ready to go. So, as does its neighbour, the 38th Tank Division. And that's because we've created a new new model for those divisions and applied it to those historical units. All good. Now, that's all pretty straightforward, and you can fiddle around there to your heart's content. A couple of big warnings. Once again, if you wander off the reservation, start changing things that haven't been covered in the video, you can expect an arrow up the backside. Second thing, with the Germans, not so much the Soviets, but the German side, if a unit has tanks, it's regarded as a fast division. Whatever you do, don't take away the tanks. Keep the tanks. You can fiddle around with the type of tanks, the numbers, keep the tanks there. On the same vein, a German unit that does not have tanks, don't give it tanks. There's a lot of internal code in the game that looks for fast and slow divisions. If you turn an infantry division into an armoured one, you're going to have to create a lot of other changes within the game to accommodate that, which is well outside the scope of today's video. So, rule of thumb, if it's got tanks, make sure it still has tanks at the end of it. If it hasn't got tanks, don't give it any. Last but not least, all units are assigned to particular HQs. Now, that's pretty solid historically. A lot of work's gone into that. If you want to change that, other things have to change to accommodate it, which have not been covered in the video. So I would strongly recommend don't do that either. Apart from those couple of restrictions, which aren't too onerous, you should be able to go through the entire Soviet and German forces and tweak them to the way you'd prefer, and the game will then accommodate that and allow you to play with the new setup. It's also possible to give your files to another player, and the two of you can then play with those files or put it on the forum as a mod. Now, the way to do that, there's a few steps. It's a little bit outside the video. Probably going to take you a while to fix things anyway, so we'll cover that later.